Tapwe, tapasi o kaya itabi. Maga, aotesko, pitagok tiokta. In those days, when a man went out hunting, when they killed the meat, they'd bring the heart, they'd bring the kidneys and the liver, they'd bring that home. The rest of the meat they'd leave out there. It was a woman's duty to go get the meat. In Dupansawit is what we would say, and they'd go and smoke it and stuff like that. If they did that, then it would take time. But this time when White Feather went out, she went and got the meat and she packed it home. She was just going to grab her pails and go to the lake. Tawaham said, no, you have to go get that meat. So she did. She went and got that meat and she brought it back. In the meantime, Tawaham had gone to the lake and hit that stump 3 times. And when those serpents come out, he grabbed them, cut their heads off, killed them. But he had a bowl, a wooden bowl, and he put some blood in there from those serpents and brought it back to the teepee. This is what's going to help White Feather break that spell. And he kept it there till his wife came back. When she came back, she threw that meat down. And she grabbed her pail. She was just going to leave the teepee to go down to the lake. And Tawaham said, wait, before you go, he said, you must drink this. And she looked at it. She said, what's that? And he said, it is the blood of your lovers. And she just hit that bowl and spilled it all over. It's just like she lost her mind. And she started fighting, and Tawaham grabbed her, and they were wrestling all over inside the teepee. Finally, they went outside, and they were fighting outside, and he couldn't overcome her because she was very, very powerful under that spell. So he told Wisakitzak, Tapasi! Means run away. And Wisakitzak took his little brother, and they started running. And they were fighting and fighting and fighting, and Tawaham could not overcome White Feather. So he grabbed an axe and hit her, chopped her head off, and the head continued to roll. It was rolling all over, and it was hollering and shrieking, and the body kept on fighting, and Tawaham was fighting with that body. And they fought for a long time. He finally got a hold of her by the ankle, started swinging her around. Faster and faster and faster, really, really fast. Finally, they started to rise up into the air, way, way up into the sky. And you can see them at night. If you look up at night in a northerly direction, you can see that North Star. That's Tawaham. And the Big Dipper revolves around the North Star, and that's White Feather. So they're still fighting up there, and they're still doing that. That's how the Big Dipper and the North Star came about, from those original people. So when you look up in the sky now, you know why that is. But in the meantime, Wisakitzak was running with his little brother, and Rolling Head chased him. Rolling Head was right behind him saying, Wisakitzak, my son, pihin, chisqua, kay tapasi, I'm your mom. Wait for me. But Wisakitzak kept on going like his dad told him. And Rolling Head got really close to Chipstuan. And he dug in his pouch. And he took out the first gift. And he threw it over his shoulder. It was that first gift was a bone awl they used for sewing a long time ago. That's what he threw over his shoulder. And there was a great big line of thorns that came between Rolling Head and Wisakitzak. And Rolling Head couldn't get through. Rolling back and forth, wondering how it's going to get through. And then this worm come walking along. And at that time, they could talk to animals, and so that Rolling Head said to that worm, Mr. Worm, he said, wait a hen, help me get through to the other side. He said, my children are over there and they need me. If you help me, I will give you my hand in marriage. And the worm looked at him, your hand in marriage? You're nothing but a head. But I'll help you anyway. So he started eating through that thorn bush. And just as he took the last bite, went through, Rolling Head went rolling right over him and crushed him. And Rolling Head said, who would want to marry a worm anyway? So away she went. So it wasn't long before she was right behind him again. And Wisakitzak could hear her coming. And he dug into his pouch again for the other one. This time it was a little flint that he took. It was a fire flint. And he threw it over his shoulder. And a big ring a fire surrounded Rolling Head. And they kept on going, they kept on running. Rolling Head was calling them, trying to figure out a way to get out of that fire. Scouteux, le feu. So they were gone. They were told not to stop, so they kept on running. They were tired, yeah, but they had to keep going. Somehow, Rolling Head got through that fire. I don't know what happened, but he was right behind him once again. And it kind of, Wisakitsak figured, well, he said, how can I get through all of this? I have 2 more gifts left. Those 2 didn't seem to help me. Just slow her down a little bit, that's it. So he dug in his pouch again. This time he got a rock, and that's what they were going to use for that flint to make a fire. So he threw that over his shoulder, and a big line of mountains came between them and Rolling Head. And they were going. And Wim Susu, his little brother, said, I'm tired. I'm hungry. I can't go no more. He said, let's rest. He said, there's a big row of mountains between us and Chistipstigan. He said, we're okay now, we're fine. Wisakitsak said, yes, I agree with you. We should rest. But our instructions were we have to keep going. And somehow, I think maybe that Rolling Head will get through, so we have to keep going. So he picked up Wim Susu, put him on his shoulders, and kept going, kept running. That's true. It wasn't long before Rolling Head, they could hear her coming behind, shrieking, hollering at them. Wisakita, Wim Susu, Pihen. They said, wait for me. Attendez-moi. But he would kept on going. They didn't want to stop. It wasn't long before they started to catch up to them. And he was really, really tired, Wisakitsak, because he was packing his brother now. And having run for all this distance, nothing to eat, no rest. He took that last gift out of his pocket, and they call it pusagan. Pusagan is like a fire starter. It's like shavings or stuff like that, but you get it from the ground. It's like almost like moss. And he went to throw it over his shoulder like this, and he tripped and fell. And that gift fell in front of him. And a river came in front of them there. They couldn't cross. It was pretty swift and lots of rapids. And he didn't know what to think. His heart sank. Put his brother down, and they could hear the Rolling Head coming really, really close. And he looked around to see if there was anything around that he could possibly use to get across. The river was too swift for them to swim. And then there was this goose, or swan, swimming. At that time, swans were black, swimming. And he called that swan over. He said, my brother, come here. And so that swan come over. He said, yeah. He said, do you think you can help me and my brother get across? He said, if you help me get across there, he said, I will make you the most beautiful bird in the world. And the swan said, I'll help you. You get on my back. He said, but don't go too close to my shoulder. If you go too close to my shoulder, we'll tip over and you'll fall in the water and you'll drown. So he got on his back, and the swan took him across. And they got off. Wisakitsak looked at him and he said, you are now the most beautiful bird in the world. And that swan turned white. That's why swans are white today. And that swan was admiring himself in the water, looking at himself, really proud. And then Rolling Head was on the other side, rolling back and forth. Called that swan over. The swan came over really proud and said, what can I do for you? He said, I'd like you to take me across there. My children are on the other side and they need me. They're hungry, they're tired, and I need to take care of them. The swan said, of course I'll help you. Get on my back. But don't go too close to my shoulder, or else we're going to tip over and you'll fall in the water. So Rolling Head got on top of the swan. They were going across the river. About halfway across, Rolling Head started to roll too close to the shoulder. They tipped over. And the last Wisakitsak ever saw of Rolling Head was the flash of a sturgeon's tail going upriver. And they say that's why today that Cree people don't eat sturgeon, because that's Rolling Head, the original one. So that's a story my grandmother used to tell. That's one of the few stories that I remember because I used to hear it all the time. The origin is from the Cree. That's Cree creation story. But us as Métis people that lived in that area had those stories passed on to us by her grandmother also, and it was passed all the way down. So it has become a Métis story, a Michif story.